Hello, making a sad video. So anyone who's not interested in sad videos, you can leave the video and watch someone else's video that is more uplifting. So I don't blame you. So already got my roll of toilet paper here, and it is very likely that I'm going to cry, and that is okay. And this is my therapist, and it's a good therapeutic solution. So I am sick right now and been suffering now with a flu that kind of lingers and it doesn't come out very all the way, and it keeps going away and then it keeps coming back. It is a dry cough and my muscles and my body are hurting and I have absolutely zero energy. Zero energy. And this zero energy is I don't know, it's like I almost feel bullied by it, because my whole life I had no energy, my whole life I had no energy in my entire life. I suffered from lack of energy my entire life. Then I had phases of where I was drinking coffee before age 25. I quit all of this at age 25. But like from like 14 or 13 to 25, I have been drinking coffee. Not excessively, but I had coffee and that seemed to help. But I know that coffee is not healthy, so after 25 I didn't drink coffee anymore and didn't take drugs, and then I was still on pharmaceuticals for depression, but that was just a scam, but I didn't know. And it's like my whole life I suffered from exhaustion. And when I came to the Primal Center in 1992, I had an intake interview with Kit and Real. Kit from Missouri, and Real from Quebec, I think, Quebec. And these two men, like 15 years older than I am, and I was 26. And they were interviewing me, and it was very strange because it was recorded for our journal to make an evaluation whether I was even fit to be a trainee, because at that time they could take in trainees to become therapists. It wasn't a clinical situation yet. Now that changed later on because his former wife had caused him legal trouble with this, because she had taken over the original center and she caused him some legal trouble. She didn't want him to have a clinic as well, or like clinic situation where they actually help clients. So he had to circumvent this and make it into a training facility, so into a school, so which was great, but then later on his lawyer got him to open it up as a clinic as well, and a training facility, both. So but when they interviewed me, it was almost like I was a prisoner, and two cops were interviewing me and interrogating me. It's like a cross examination. But they were nice, they were friendly, that was the reminder that this is just, an intake interview. It's not a cross-examination, but I was awkward and I felt embarrassed, and also in front of a camera, knowing that was going to be recorded. That was new to me at that time. And and they asked me a couple of very uncomfortable questions. I'm not going to get into the details of it now, but it had to do with rape and all of this. And I have no memories of this. I have only, all I have is drawings and very horrible dreams. That's all I have. And I have an extreme tension in my body. And I'm trying to get to the nitty-gritty, to the reason of why I had to suffer my whole life with this exhaustion. This is a physical and psychological exhaustion. And it also goes hand in hand. I mean, it can't be separated from one another. As a child already, I went to a therapist, Annalise, and I do remember this. She wrote about this also in detail in her book, how I was hanging over that swing. I would come to her, and I was exhausted beyond measure. And I had an intense disgust against people, against humans. The disgust was so intense that I felt like throwing up from this disgust and from the exhaustion. I mean, as anyone can probably imagine, these things, that they don't come from nothing. It doesn't just happen like this. I mean, if a little girl has these types of thoughts and feelings, then something abhorrent has happened that initiates this. Something obnoxious happened that brings that on. I feel sorry for myself, but I just want people to know that I know I'm not a single case. I know I'm not some princess on the pea. I keep repeating this, because I know a lot of people will probably think, oh, you've had it too good in your life, you've always had everything. You're just suffering because you had it too good. That's a terrible misunderstanding of people when they judge someone who comes from a family where they had nannies and could send their child to a therapist. This is a terrible, terrible misconception. Just because a family has financial means and culture and knowledge doesn't mean that they are now automatically perfect fit to have children. That doesn't mean that at all. We see this over and over again. We see that prominent people and people that are coming from wealth often have severe psychological problems. Severe. David Foster Wallace talks about this. He talks about it in his novels, and he talks about it in interviews. There's one interview in particular where he really highlights this problematic, this, having everything, but then not being seen at all. That brings me again to Marina Abramovich, the performance artist. And Marina Abramovich, that's really, to me, that's the epitome of a therapist. That's, to me, that's the ultimate that's the ultimate awareness, total awareness. she sees, she really sees, that's what she focuses her attention on, not focused on bookkeeping or these kind of things, which is all important, but I don't know. My brother said that he heard that that her life is disorderly or something. I don't know what that means or in which way, but this is often the case with artists, that they focus their attention on the psychology and on this now moment much more than on on organization and bureaucracy and bookkeeping and all of this. It's all has its place, it's all important. I mean, anyone who can manage all of this, and finds perfect balance in all of this, is very well off. But most of us artists are struggling with keeping things organized and keeping things under control and in order. For me, it's vital. I have to have everything in order, or my brain can't function at all. I have to have everything in total order, almost like OCD type of thing. I can't. I have to have everything at a specific place, and it has to be stocked up. It has to be there. I can't be looking for something in a frenzy, in a pile of stuff, for example. I have to have everything organized. That's the only way I can keep my brain balanced. But that Marina Abramovic, she really sees things, and so this one performance in particular really strikes me in this regard, and that is when she sits on a table on a very very elegant furniture, like very elegant chair and elegant table, and there's a chair on the other side of the table, and she sits there in very amazing, stellar, amazing haute couture gowns that are like gala gowns that not only come to the ground, that actually have a veil dragging behind. So sitting there with their beautiful long raven hair, and then these gala gowns, and she just sits there on these chairs, and she invites people to come and sit in front of her on the other chair. So people would take turns. I don't know how long each person was sitting there, but they would be encouraged to sit there for a while and not do anything else. Just sit there and look at her. Just look at her eyes. And she sees everything, her eyes see everything. And so for the first time in people's lives, there was someone sitting there, a stranger. For most people, she was a stranger. Some people may have heard about her, seen her work, and here they had this opportunity to sit in front of this amazing artist and look in her eyes. And here's that amazing artist looking at them, like if I was there, it's like, wow, she's looking at me, totally insignificant, puny type of person. And she's looking at me, I come there and I take this opportunity, and I said, I never did. I would do it if I would have done it if I had been there at that time, but I wasn't. What was this? I forgot now where this was taking place, but I think that was about 10 years ago. And so if I would have done this, but I can just imagine myself, I sit there in front of this prominent artist, and I feel so meek and puny, this feeling already is like, it all ties in with one another, this feeling of, I had a session with Mada once, and the first thing she said to me, I had a session with her on Skype, and the first thing she said to me is, I see that you feel like a nobody. And well, that hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what it is. I do I feel puny. It's also something my ego tries to avoid, that feeling of puniness and feeling like a nobody. I remember when I was a big fan of Arjanov, got that opportunity through Annalise, my therapist, to see Arjanov in person and work with him, be his student. So I remember how in the airplane on my way to LA for the first time, I got severe diarrhea. And I know why. It was very uncomfortable, particularly on an airplane, to get like such wild intestinal uproar. And I know why it happened, because I was like, hey, I was about to see the Pope or Marilyn Monroe. So it was like this feeling was so intense, of I'm going to see Arjanov, I'm going to shake his hands. He even gave me a hug. It's like me, puny Nikki, the puny person who is always there. The in Germany they call him Mauerblümchen. The sidekick. I've always been the sidekick. I've always been in the fringes, the outcast, the outsider artist, the outsider person, the outsider flower, the outsider daisy that looks into the amphitheater from way outside. Didn't even get didn't even get one of the seats in the amphitheater. Just was able to, from a far distance, growing under some kind of old ruins, being able to look into the amphitheater and admire the actors in there and the culture and all of this, and the popular people and all of this, always outside looking and admiring the popular people, whether that was in my school or whether this is in Hollywood or whether this is in LA or Geneva or wherever I have been, looking at people, feeling like a nobody, almost like feeling I'm just watching TV sometimes when I look at people in person even. And then I realize by the people looking at me back, and sometimes they would even mimic my facial expression. And then I realized, oh, they see me too. I'm standing here in person. I forgot. I thought I was watching some famous people. And it always comes back to this feeling, I'm puny, and then I almost like forget I exist too, I exist. And just talking about this, there's a tremendous pain that wants to come up. A tremendous pain. So for anyone who's about to write now, yeah, but you have it good, or you look at the bright side, don't do this. Okay, so I know what I'm doing. I'm going through it. Okay, this is called the transition tunnel. I'm in the transition tunnel. Okay, and these tears will come up, and it is okay. Okay, I'm not saying I'm a winner. I'm not saying I have come out the other end. I'm not saying I am above it. I'm not saying I'm enlightened. Far from it. But it's not death. It's not It's not a catastrophe. Even if I died, it would not be a catastrophe. Okay. So no panic, no catastrophe. I'm going through. Okay. I want other people to do the same thing. It's not a catastrophe to go through the transition tunnel. It just feels like this, dictated by the ego, because the ego doesn't want to go through it. The ego thinks it dies when it goes through it. But that's a good thing, you know, when the ego dissolves. It's not like a tragic death or anything, but the ego can dissolve and relax. It's a good thing. And the guard, the inner guard, you know, there's this tremendous tension in my body always, my whole life. Tension and anxiety. Arjanov diagnosed that right away after he saw that intake interview. There was another guy who had that same diagnosis, tension and anxiety. The other people had different type of combinations and things. But I don't know, we were about 50 people at the center at that time. That was the most vibrant time in my entire life, because these 2 years under Arjanov giving the classes, that I was able to experience this before he retired. That was an amazing thing for me. It really was much more important than meeting Marilyn Monroe and the Pope. Much more important. It's like meeting Sigmund Freud. It's like meeting Charles Darwin. It's on that level. It's really, really, really amazing. And he didn't put himself on a pedestal. He didn't pretend to be beyond all of this, the struggling that we students were in. He didn't pretend to be the all-knowing entity above. You know, he was exploring, you know. He put his whole life's energy into that, exploring the brain, exploring the mind, exploring psychology, how people function, you know, how they react to the childhood pain, and how this childhood pain can be dissolved. Some of the terminology is just slightly different. He calls the ego the defense mechanism. So, but it's the same thing, you know, and he says the defense mechanism is extremely smart and tricky and very elusive. It will figure out ways, long before we become aware of it, figure out ways how to escape the transition tunnel. How to escape this, the confrontation with this, the actual, you know, looking at the issues that are going on, looking at my issues. My whole life, I suffered from this incredible tension. I was just out there on the lawn in the sun. It was very amazing. I was lying down there on the grass with my head down. I put my forehead on my hands, and I smelled the grass, and it smelled absolutely wonderful, and the ants were crawling on my arm, and they were giving me physical touch. And it felt really, really warm and really good and safe in that moment. So for 8 years in this house particularly, I had this incredible tension inside of me, even more than before. It was like extreme. It was compounded on and compounded. such extreme tension. Because what happened was, this is how it all started. I did, I wished for this house. I knew it was there. I didn't know about this house, but I knew this house existed. So I did the law of attraction type of thing. And I wished for this house in detail. I envisioned it. And then I let go of it completely. You have to, if you don't let go completely of it, of of that thing that you wish for, it's not going to come. So this is that is the universal law. It's true. You know? I've tested this on myself. So, and then I gave up on it. I thought, oh, why should I even? Why should I think about this any further? Yeah, better not think about it. So then the whale event came up, and I completely put my 150% into the whale event and bringing awareness locally and getting signatures on paper to be signed and sending it to Coastal Commissioner Sarah Van, who is an amazing woman. And so this work, and then also after the whale event, we had an online community of whale event people all through California. And it was interesting and it was fun getting to know these people. And so, and then eventually I started to look again. I started to look at realtor.com. Lo and behold, the very, very, very first listing that popped up was this house. And I was shocked. I was like, this is exactly the house that I envisioned. And they took terrible photos of the house. Absolutely terrible photos. I mean, it's like someone who's trying to get the property tax down or something. Those kind of photos. So, but I knew this is it. This is what I wished for. I could clearly see it. So, and it took months, maybe half a year, until I got my husband to even look at it. So it was some kind of deal that we made. If I look at this one, then you have to look at this one. Okay. So finally looked at it. As soon as he saw it, it's like, oh my gosh, that's like a mansion in Bel Air. So it's just not in Bel Air, and that's why it's cheap. And also it had problems, it had very, very serious water damage issues, mold, sick. The house was sick when we moved in here. Probably got all kind, and I got very violently sick from cleaning the toilets in this house, because the people have totally neglected all of this. And there's just sickness everywhere, and the rug everywhere. It's like sickness, illness, pharmaceutical particles. It's in the walls. It's embedded into the fabric of this house. All sickness and pharma toxins and cat litter smells and strange old women's deodorants and old women's sickness smells, and it was a disaster the way it smelled and everything. So we had to do a lot of cleaning. It was very hard. The work in the very beginning caused me to have carpal tunnel and got very violently sick many times, and I know it was from the pathogens that were left behind from the people before us. But that's why we got it cheap, because the banks wouldn't even give a loan on this property. So we got lucky. Paul is very, very handy, and he knows a lot about electricity. He had a burglar alarm business. He knows how to check electric cords, and he has all the equipment to hook things up and to create extensions and to change entire lamps in the ceiling and all of these things, and plumbing, and he has a lot of knowledge with all of this. So that's why we were able to clean this all up and fix it all up and make this house, rescue this house basically. So, but because we got this house that I wished for, and of course it could not have been a house that was worth $2 million. You know, that's the like my that was my ultimate dream. Like, yeah, I want a house. There was this one house for 4 million. Okay, I'm not gonna say where, but I wanted that so much, you know. But there's no way. How can we, you know? You can't jump from A to Z, even if in the law of attraction, you know, if you are here, you can't be getting to but you can go from A to B. Okay, that's possible, and then from B to C, and so on. So yeah, with humble financial means, you can't make these ginormous jumps. But you know, we got this house that I wished for, and it's lovely. And it's a paradise outside, and it's very well cut out, very large and very beautiful house. I love it. But it had all these problems, and we were able to fix them, and we got sick, which is unfortunate, of course. But yeah, but that's also part of being a psychic healer, I call it. Someone said that non-native Americans are not allowed to call themselves shamans. So I said, I agree with you. I won't use the word shaman anymore. And I found that a little bit pitiful, this request, because I think people should share their words with other people. That's like, I own this word. You can't have it. But I said, okay, I give you can keep that word. So I'm gonna call myself a a psychic healer. Okay, I started in healing myself, so it's a tremendous journey. You know, I started in 2002, that journey, and the kind of valleys and peaks I have transcended on that journey. It's quite amazing, but I still have light years to go. So it's okay. But this is a journey. Life is a journey, you know. It's not like I'm gonna reach this goal and then I can retire or something. Then I can lean back, and it doesn't work that way. You reach this one goal that you have worked towards, and that's wonderful, and then you keep on going and you keep on exploring and learning, because we have to. If we stagnate, we're going to be thrown over by the river of life. Life is a flow. Everything is in a constant flux and constantly moving. That means dying. That means illness. That also means going through it, through that experience. And I deliberately avoid the word conquering, because conquering is always like, I gotta mount this, I gotta be on top of it, I gotta subdue something. Yeah, that's all implied in that word, and that's why I avoid it, because it's not about conquering. It's not about getting over something, getting over it. I want to get over it. I want to get done with it. I hear so many people say this. That's a state of resistance. You are here. I am here right now in this feeling. Oh, my whole life I suffered from this tension and this exhaustion. Tension can only bring exhaustion. It's obvious, right? When you're constantly in tension at the center, you know what? When they asked me, how do you feel? I was supposed to give a presentation, couldn't even do it because I was such a mental nervous wreck. So then Howard came. That was very nice of Howard to put his hand on my shoulder for a longer time. Oh, that felt so good. You know, a warm touch from an older brother, sort of. You know, felt so good. It felt like he understood how I was feeling and struggling. So they asked me, how do you feel? What is the word that comes to mind? If you can just put it in one sentence, how do you feel? How have you felt your whole life? And I with all of these questions, I didn't have to think about it at all. It just came out of me like a volcano. It was instantly there, the answer. And the answer was, I feel like a worm that's plugged into an electric outlet. And that just wriggles and sizzles like this. Like like being under constant electricity, like constantly being electrocuted with tension. That's what it is. Tension. Tension and apprehension and resistance and fear and all of these words that fall into this. Fear and anxiety and expectation and hope. All of this falls into this. All of it. So reason why I explained that about the house is, so once we got this house, we started to move in 2010. At first I was like, even with all the problems and all of that, I was in absolute heaven. I thought the universe has brought me this house. I was so infinitely grateful. I still am, always am. And it's just it's like a fairy tale. It's just it's like a dream castle. It's like surrounded by all these trees. A Swedish couple built this. They left the trees standing. They're environmental. They're kind, caring. They see the value of trees. For us to find this, in this price range, from all the other real estate listings, in a very vast range that we were looking, he found that very one that was a match to my wish. And it's there. If you have a wish, it's there already. You just don't know it. And in order to tune in and tap into it, you have to first let go. That's really the art of law of attraction. You have to let go. And that's a real yoga exercise, to let go of that. And the ego is very tricky with this. I let go, but deep inside you're still hoping that's not letting go. Oh, I let go of this woman or whatever I hear people say. But deep inside it's still there. They're still thinking about her or this or that. So no, you have to really let go. And what it means to really let go of something, when you really do this, you let the air out. It's like a hot air in a hot air balloon. You let that air out, and the whole balloon deflates. The whole balloon, this infection, starts to completely deflate and end up on the ground, wrinkly and everything, deflated. That infection air is out. The infectious pimple has been drained or whatever. So that's how it is. That's how it is with when people are clinging to something, whatever they're clinging to. It's like infection. It's resistance and it's pathology. Mental illness is based on that. All mental illness is based on clinging. That's all it is. But no psychiatrist want to hear about this. No client even wants to talk about it. They want to run away from that as fast as possible. Thus, they're getting sicker and sicker and sicker every day. Thus, they take more and more and more Prozac and Seroquel and Zyprexa. The list goes on. I don't know how many drugs I have taken, but they are extremely toxic. Okay, they almost killed me. This is a fact, and I'm warning people about it. And no one can stop me from warning. The industries can't stop me from warning people. With all of their lawyers that are trying to get rid of anyone who says the truth. This is still the truth and still fact. And people need to know about it. So I went the holistic route, and that means facing the issues. You can't keep running away from it. I can't pop a pill. I remember I met this guy once in LA. He said, I just want to pop a pill. And he didn't say this in some kind of self-deprecating, humorous sense. He's like, he said it in a very serious and retarded way. I just want to pop a pill. And that should take care of it. Okay, then you have totally bypassed why you're even here in the first place. We exist here, whether people believe in this or that doesn't even matter. You exist here, and this existence here is a school. It's an ongoing learning project. Ongoing, okay? You can't just lean back and let things take care of everything. Then you're gonna be taken advantage of very quickly. If you let other people handle things, if you let other people do your finances or management or tell you about health and you believe it and you lean on so-called authorities, then you're gonna be very, very sorry very soon. Okay, so and this is not how this is not how we should live our lives. But most people live their lives that way. Most people lean on authority, parents or husband or teachers or doctors, politicians, and so on. And then what happens? Problems, real big problems arise. Adolf Hitler's arise, Kim Jong-un's pop up here and there, entire religious oppressive movements come up like tsunami waves on the horizon. You better run. So, but people don't run. Instead they say, I'm not prejudiced. I look the other way because I want to be liked, says the ego. I want to be invited to the party. Yeah, and if that happens on a mass scale, you can imagine the next Adolf Hitler and the next Kim Jong-un of any color and the next religious oppressive movement will take full advantage of that, okay, of that sentiment, of that collective holding the other cheek, for whatever reason. It's not white guilt anymore. That's a facade excuse. It's like white guilt is like some kind of status symbol or company name, so white guilt. No, it's not white guilt. It's fear it's fear of being rejected by society. That's what it really is, if people are willing to really look at the nitty-gritty of it. And I am willing to look, and I've been in all of these things. I've been involved in all of this. I have caught myself in all kinds of those things. I've been brainwashed this way and that way and this, and I've been brainwashed into the white guilt thing, into the hold the other cheek, all of this. Martin Luther, the monk, I mean, all kinds of things. Not in a Martin Luther the monk in an unspoken way. We weren't religious, but that thing was still lingering, unconsciously. Oh yeah, all kinds of prejudices against the Catholic Church. They were still lingering there in my parents, who originally come from a Protestant Lutheran background. They think, oh, I have nothing to do with this. I'm an atheist agnostic. I have nothing to do with this. We are academics. Their ego says we pride ourselves by we are above all of this. But underneath is still there, that whole thing. All these, you know, all these childhood dogmatizations that have been embedded into people's brains, and they don't even know it. They're not even consciously aware of it, of all of these things. Then time goes by, the sign of the times shifts, new paradigms happen, and very gradually people are putting these other childhood dogmatizations on the back burner, further and further out. Oh, I didn't see it. They don't even want to acknowledge that they have been brainwashed in the wrong direction. But they don't question this, or they don't question the new ones either. They don't question anything. They just go by whatever is on vogue right now. And whatever gets them invited, whatever gets them accepted. It doesn't matter what it is. It is amazing how far that goes. It's really shocking to me how far that goes. This unconsciousness in people, how far they are willing to accept atrocities because they want to be accepted by other people, by their peer group, by friends, by circles. And the more pretentious the circle, the more intense